Well, I'm a Texas Gambadoo and Rambler, and there is Dusty finally.
Well, I'm very
Okay.
sorry. I just slipped back into Central Time Zone, and I was looking for 4 o'clock, and I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry,
All
dude.
good.
I'm just
Glad we
happy you're
got
here. This is the
Um,
eighth attempt, I think.
well, I'm pumped to be here. This is awesome.
Dude, I'm not only am I pumped to be here, it's like this is what's so funny about this, Dusty. And it's crazy that you and I have never met because I spend a lot of time in Nashville and we're both comedians and we know a lot of the same people. I'm friends with Nate and everybody over at Zany's Nashville, and I've seen your work and I think you're great. But this is why we needed this so bad because I remember Jeremiah, my producer. I was getting ready to like you missed the first one, which was totally cool. We're like, all right, we'll bump it to Friday. And then I was like, all right. And then I got offered to go to Boston with Big J Okerson and just have like a fun weekend doing a couple theater gigs and just chilling and like and whatever. And I was like, dude, I think I gotta go. And Jeremiah goes, yeah, dude, but we can't lose Dusty for this. I have no idea who's gonna talk about the Anthology of the American Folk music and know it at all.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm pumped to be here. I mean, Friday I would have been able to do it, but it would have been bad for me too because I flew into Grand Rapids. The airline lost my baggage for a bit. I had to Uber back and forth to the airport. So, and I was just in Eastern time last night, and then I slipped back into Central. But I'm still thinking 4 o'clock. But
dude, here's the deal. Couldn't be worse than my night last night. I was talking to Jeremiah, and I want to tell all my listeners about this because I think I have a $3 million lawsuit with McDonald's because we went to the drive-through. We were podcasting while we were at the drive-through, and we're videotaping all of this. Louis J. Gomez orders a coffee. I'm going to pass it to him. The cup explodes. It's boiling coffee. It's given me second. What'd you call that? Second or third degree, Jeremiah, on my leg? Burns?
2.5.
2.5 degree
Wow.
burns on my inner thigh, which people are wondering that my friends were like, how could you get a burn underneath your knee? Like under, like in the socket area? Like this coffee was like the bullet from JFK. Like this went up and to the left.
well, people always made fun of that lady that got burned with coffee, but it messed her up. They say,
It did.
And I don't even know what a second or third degree burn looks like, but even a little bit of burn is not fun.
Yeah, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to an urgent care so I can lock it in, and then I'm getting a lawyer because my entertainment lawyer can't do shit. But I'll get like a real greasy lawyer, and we're gonna get you, McDonald's. We're gonna get you.
Well,
All right.
I hope it happens.
So do I, please, because that would be great. I want a bigger apartment. Let's before we even get into American folk music, I've only known what I've seen you on your Netflix special. I see you online. You know, the comedy, the voice, everything. So where were you born? What was it like growing up for you? Because I want to get to that before we get into the folk music.
Well, I was born in Alabama, a town called Opelika, Alabama,
Okay.
which is about 2 hours from Atlanta, Georgia. We're right on the east side of Alabama. My parents were married until I was about 2. I don't know how they ever got married to each other. I could never see them married to each other, but it didn't last long.
Nice.
And then I moved into a trailer park with my mom, and then that's what I wrote at least all of my early jokes about. I think I've ran out of them now. I'm still trying to come up with trailer park jokes, but I think I've just run out of it now.
Hey man, you hit a wall, dude.
Yeah.
Now it's time to move into single family home, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
like condo living.
Exactly.
So you obviously grew up, like you said, like in the South, low in, what do you call it, like lower class, middle class, or lower middle class?
I would call it lower class. I mean, I think my family was good. We weren't like, stabbing each other and stuff, but we were definitely lower class.
Nice.
Yeah.
We were middle class, and then my dad lost his job, and we still lived in our house to make it look like we were middle class, but in actuality, we were lower middle class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough time, and then I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I think it builds character. You know,
Well, I think so too. I mean, had my parents stayed married, I probably would have been middle class. They both had pretty decent jobs, but yeah, I mean, it is like rough in weird ways to be poor. Like we had money for food and stuff, you know, we weren't starving, but
yeah.
it's, and I had like a Super Nintendo and a lot of games. We weren't managing the money well.
Yeah.
There was money, but we would go to NASCAR races and order WWF pay-per-view, you know?
Yeah, dude, you guys see SummerSlam fucking,
Yeah,
come on, Ravishing Rick
yeah.
Food versus Ultimate Warrior.
Exactly.
Come on, man. Very much so. I think my mom was a wallet keeper, and my dad was the one that was always angry, but my mom was spending. But it's like, you know, there's still something in the house of like arts and humor and laugh and music. Like my dad, even when he would be depressed about the job situation he was in, would always have like, you know, good jazz on, upbeat music. My mom would listen to the Beatles and shit like that. So what was like playing, because you were too young to really remember when your mom and dad were together, but when you were living with your mom, you know, what music was kind of going through the household, or how did you guys, besides the WrestleMania, how'd you keep yourself entertained?
Well, we were mainly a 90s country family. I
Okay.
mean, that's because, I mean, late 80s or in 90s. I mean, because I was born in 82.
Okay.
So that's what we were doing. I mean, George Strait, Garth Brooks, Alabama, Reba McEntire. I mean, that
Nice.
sort of thing. But my sisters I got a sister that's 9 years older, a sister that's 11 years older. They were into like Poison and Rat and Motley Crue.
Yeah, the good
And
stuff.
then my mom would also listen to some Bon Jovi. We would sing a lot of Bon Jovi in the car. And she also liked Jim Croce a lot.
Nice.
And then,
Oh,
you know,
love the Croach.
she had a Barry Manilow box set. I know more Barry Manilow songs than I probably should.
There's nothing to be ashamed about that either, though. Like
Uh,
the cheese crooners, like the Neil Diamonds,
oh yeah,
the Barry Manilows, the Paul Ankas, the stuff like that. Like that's great music. You might not appreciate it when you're like in the thick of like hair metal or grunge, but the older you get, the more that you're like, those songs that you just like, Sweet Caroline, yeah, that's cheesy as fuck. But if you go to like the rest of Neil Diamond's catalog, I mean, that's great music. Great music.
and really, Sweet Caroline's only cheesy now because everybody has ran it in the ground.
Yes.
Like if you were sitting there and that song came on for the first time, you would be like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah.
That's like if you tell somebody that you really like the song "Stairway to Heaven," they act like you don't know anything about music, and it's like, no, that's a great song.
Great song, dude.
We've just heard it too much.
If you want a different version of it, past guest that we had on this podcast, Ann Wilson from Heart, I think it was at like the Kennedy Center Honors. She does a cover of it, and
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
it is like everything that we used to have a writer on the show named Morty, and he would say that you know, Ann Wilson and Heart were kind of passed the torch from Robert Plant and Jimmy Page in this weird way back then because of the notes that Ann and Nancy could sing. And it's like, you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, that's a perfect cover. And if anything, it just makes the song, which we already love. And it's already musically, it's like one of the most popular, greatest songs ever written. It really just shows all of why you love that song even more. So check that out.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
I love that you kind of, it's like that 80s living, which is like you're getting, you know, because you're living in the South, so you're getting that country, which by the way, the 80s and 90s country might be, I mean, country now is so bad compared, and I hate to say that if you're a fan, and I'm going on the road with Jelly Roll for this big tour for like 40 shows. His music I dig. I dig
Jelly
his
Roll,
music. Love Jelly. His music's great, but it's like some of the other country is just terrible now.
Well, there is good country out there, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not like I do the Opry a bunch, right? So I hate to criticize new country, but it's like, this is what I'll say. It's just not country.
It's not, it's pop.
Yeah, it's just
pop,
like I went
exactly.
to the ACM Awards in Vegas last year, and there was no fiddle, no steel guitar, no upright bass. I mean, they're all great musicians, but it's just not country.
It's Florida Georgia Line. It's like,
Yes.
It's very commercially successful on the radio and all that.
Who's that song? God damn, me and Tessa, my ex-girlfriend, used to make fun of it. It was like, it's like, country girl, shake it for me, girl, shake it for me. With the critters and the crawls down by the creek, and you're giving up everything down by the sheets, and you're getting all the hay and the ho, daddy ho. Critters and the crickets and the critters and the crickets.
That could be a number of songs.
But what's cool, Dusty, about doing this podcast was I was the guy for most of my life, you know, when people would say, what music do you like? I'd be like, everything but country. And then we started doing this podcast. And some stuff. I remember when I was dating Tessa, because she was from South Carolina, she got me into Alan Jackson, like, you know, down by the river with the Chattahoochee, like that little bitty.
Hoochie
coochie. I swear to God, Alan, I could listen to Alan Jackson all fucking day.
Alan Jackson's great.
We started doing this podcast, and I think the first country record that really came up was Steve Earle, Guitar Town, which I remember Jeremiah, I fell in love with that record. I've seen Steve Earle 3 times live since.
Nice.
We've done like Merle Haggard, his anthology. We've done Loretta Lynn, which I fell in love with Loretta Lynn. And we've done a few more. But this is the thing, is that you listen to that old country, you know, and you, some of the lyrics, especially the outlaw stuff and Loretta, I mean, those lyrics are as real as like some of the early hip hop about what was happening in the South Bronx or what's happening in the ghetto. It's like you're getting a different part of the country, but you're getting just realistic shit.
Johnny Paycheck has a song called Colorado Kool-Aid, where he talks about being in a bar and a guy spits in his buddy's ear, spits beer in his ear, and his buddy takes out a knife and cuts the guy's ear off, and it falls on the ground. Ooh. And I'm like, did it happen? I don't know, but I bet it did.
For sure. You know what's funny about Johnny Paycheck? So I do the goddamn comedy jam where comedians sing, and Bill Burr has done it almost more than anybody, but he only plays drums, and he sang only once, and the only song he sang was take this job and shove it.
That's a great one.
He dressed up like Johnny Paycheck. Actually, what we're doing at the jam on February 28th, and I think you'll appreciate this, there's a song by, I'm pretty sure it's Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. It's like, I'm gonna remember the title of it, but it's like, something the cocaine, put down the whiskey, baby. No more whiskey, no more pills. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We're gonna do a duet of that, which
all right.
I better fucking learn the goddamn lyrics because it's coming up in a few weeks. But all of that music that we were just talking about, the 80s, the 90s, and then So Down earlier, you don't get any of that unless you have what we're listening to today, which is basically, you know, one of the most extensive mixtapes of early folk music ever put together. And what blew my mind was, you know, it does seem like it's on brand with you because where you grew up, you know, your style of stand-up, everything you talk about, your image, but it's like, I was more in shock that I was like, wow, Dusty wants to do this. Like, do you have a love for this earlier folk music, or were you just interested and thought you'd want to listen to this just to kind of talk about it?
Well, you know, I am into folk music, right? But I didn't exactly know the album, right? Okay. The anthology that was put together. So I start listening to this because when we first talked about doing this, I went and I just downloaded a bunch of different folk. I just started listening to it, just, you know, because, you know, everybody knows like Bob Dylan and Gordon Lightfoot and people like that. And it's like, but, you know, this anthology, much older. And this is the way that, you know, the thing that I always think about when I listen to music like this, it's like, it's all about the setting, right? If you throw this music on in the car, it's not the best. Because it's the recordings are old. I'm sure the microphones, we can buy microphones at Walmart that are better than what they had in the studio then. But it's like, there's one song on there I was listening, it was just like flute and drums. And I thought, if you're hanging out at a party, somebody throws this song on, you're going to be like, you're going to be mad about it. You're going to be like, let's get out of here. What's going on? But if a guy shows up and starts playing the flute like that, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like what I love about every recording is just every song off of these three separate albums. There's this noise is running under every track.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the
It's like
first the first half of the album almost feels like they're all inspired by "You Are My Sunshine." That's
yes.
what it
Well,
just sounds.
there wasn't, not to cut you off, but there wasn't like a lot of variation in chord changes, I guess, a long time ago. And you could even say some of the old big band shit all has like a similar vibe and cadence to everything.
Yeah, because I think probably they didn't have a lot to draw from, right? They didn't have all this other music
No.
to be like, I'm gonna incorporate this. But they also people were probably just starved for entertainment, especially in these really poor areas. That's why you get all this blues out of New Orleans and Mississippi. It's like just really poor areas where people, if you can get a guitar or a harmonica and sing a little bit, like people have something to do.
Oh my God. This was some of these people performing probably like the whole town shut down to go see them
Oh
because
yeah.
like this was like, from my understanding, like this here, let me go into what this actually is because we have a little spiel. So just because this isn't like one person put this together, this is a folk music enthusiast named Harry Smith. He chronicled one of the most important periods in our country's history, the periods before, during, and after the Great Depression, including tales of adultery, presidential assassinations, and the Titanic. While the release date says 1997 officially on our list, it was actually released in 1952, but due to rights issues not being buttoned up, that this wasn't an official release until 97. So this is, even though it's called the Anthology of American Folk Music, this is literally one guy. It's called the Harry Smith Anthology, as some call it. And this is the Bible of folk music during the late 50s and early 60s Greenwich Village folk scene. And it's credited with sparking the revival of American folk music, including being influential on Bob Dylan. But also, this is really does have some of the earliest recordings of blues and country music over 3 separate albums, 84 tracks. Did you listen to the whole thing? You've gone through all.
I have listened to most of it. Yes.
Yeah, this is a longie, dude. This is a long. I got all of this on a drive from Massachusetts down to New York City. I listened to it the whole way down. Smoked a joint. I like this shit. As I've gotten older, Dusty. There's a group, and this isn't them. None of them. They're not on this, but there's this group called the Ink Spots. They have like, have you ever seen like The Shining, like the music that they played like at that hotel where it's like, if I didn't care,
Oh yeah.
if
Yeah.
I did, I know, I don't know. I love that shit, even though it's like horror movie music. So this, when I put this on it started, I immediately was like, okay, like this, I'm in this vibe. I really dig this style shit. I love the crinkle. I love the limitless of the instruments and how like, this is basically, like you said, they set up a goddamn microphone. The guys were probably around it all playing at the same time. And whatever was recorded is what they got.
And there's a chance they didn't even understand. I mean, imagine you don't have microphones all the time and then you go sit in a room. There's a chance you don't even really know what's happening. You're like, I'm just in here singing. You know what I mean? Like, not that they were dumb, but it was like we have microphones around us all the time. I mean, I'm traveling with 2 or 3 microphones in my bag. I'm going through the airport, getting TSA, checking my microphones. Yeah. But, they didn't even have a microphone. So imagine you go into this place and they're like, hey, do that song. And then we're going to record it. You might not even know what record means.
What are you talking about? We're going to take what you did, put it on this round circle. What kind of devil instrument is that?
Yes.
I don't think my preacher would be very happy if he found out that I was contributed to the dark arts.
Yeah, I mean, some have said like the Amish don't want you to take photos of them because they believe it like captures their soul or something, So, I mean, imagine your music on a record.
All right, now I got to ask you this question because of where you grew up. Did you experience those kind of people? Like, where those like, I don't think that you are involved in this, but I used to watch this shit on like 2020 or 60 Minutes with like the people that worship Jesus through like venomous snakes, and they're like I hung a hair behind Jesus, I'm handling a viper and a home here. Oh Jesus!
The Bible tells us to not be messing with snakes, so I don't know why. I mean, Adam and Eve, right? So I'm like, I know I've never been in a church like that. I've been to some wild churches where they're like talking in tongues and laying hands on each other and people are falling out in there. But I went to that church because I was interested in a girl that went there. I had no idea what was going on there.
Did you seal the deal?
No, it did not pan out, and probably worked out well for me. I was a waiter at a restaurant called Western Sizzlin' at the time. And it's good that didn't work out.
Wait, what are they serving at Western Sizzlin'?
Well, Western Sizzlin', I have a joke. I say it's like a Golden Corral without all the class, like a silver corral.
Yeah. Jared, did you ever go with us where we used to get high and drive down to Frederick and go to Golden Corral? Me, Leb Kicker, Bobby, and all of us. God damn, that was like, I would look forward to that. It's like that shitty restaurant.
Western Sizzlin' was great back in the day. I mean, it's a steak restaurant, so you actually could order steaks, but then they also had the buffet, a lot of fried chicken, a lot of yeast rolls, fat back, which I'm still not real clear on, but my understanding is that's fried pieces of fat.
Oh God!
So
from the back, back fat,
real
specific.
Salty. Yeah.
It's like my mom used to cook us flanks, not flank steak. Flank steak's actually good. Cube steak. Did you ever have cube steak?
Oh, I've had cube steak. Yeah.
Yeah. Burr does a joke about it where he goes, "It's the toughest meat. I think it's from the ACL of a yak." That was my mom's. It was like once every couple of weeks when she was just like, "This is what we could afford this week." And like, God, cubes. You needed ketchup to cut it. I remember Golden Corral. It was fine. It was like have you ever done a cruise?
I've been on a cruise, never done comedy on a cruise.
So I mean, well, you don't. Thank God. You're doing great, so you never have to, unless like you get invited to like the Burt cruise or like the Impractical Jokers cruise. Fuck every one of them off. Be like, no, I don't want to do it. But when your homies are on it, it's the best. But there's a buffet there, and I would say Golden Corral is above that. I would say Golden Corral is above
Yeah, I think so. They used to have, a meat cutter guy, a guy that would stand there and cut you off a little piece of whatever it was. I mean, called prime rib. Was it prime rib? I don't know, but yeah, but he would cut it off for you, and you're like, all right, this is living. This is what we're doing here. I'm on a lunch break. I got to go work after this.
Yeah. But I think there's like, there's like places in America that's like, just like we were talking about with the Golden Corral being a good restaurant where, whether it's those churches that we're talking about, it's the people that, they always talk to those people that are like, we went to this foreign country where there's no real television, there's no nothing, and so they just have this life there. And I've driven, and I'm pretty sure you have too, driven through parts of America where it's like they're contained. This one community is completely self-sufficient. They have their butcher, they have their police officer, they have their hospital or doctor, and then those people don't ever leave there, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, my hometown is, it's a bit bigger. I mean, it's right next to a university. But yeah, I mean, I never really left my hometown. My uncle worked at a Holiday Inn in several different cities, usually Gatlinburg, and that's where we would vacation. We never left. I mean, there's no reason to leave. Why would we leave?
So did you start getting into stand-up? Did you know that you were like, man, I'm just a funny guy in my community, or like, how did it? So, because dude, you're killing it, and I mean, it's also you're clean too, so that just makes it even easier to get you out there. But like, how did you suddenly just decide you wanted to do this?
I moved to Charleston, South Carolina when I was 21, and me and my buddy that moved there instantly got into a fight. We moved into different apartments, so now I'm in this new place with no friends. And coming from a town where I knew everyone to now I have no friends. And so I saw this ad in a newspaper for improv classes. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea what improv was. but it said comedy improv classes. So I took a class, and then through that, started doing stand up. And then for 6 years, I lived in Charleston doing stand up. I never did a comedy club. I had no idea even how comedy business worked. I was just I was selling pesticides and doing comedy on the side. And I was like, and then I won a competition locally.
Yeah.
And I made a little money. And then the next year, and then I quit drinking. And then the next year I won the competition by so many more votes that I thought, well, maybe I can do something with this. So I started trying to figure out how to get into the business. And I met a comic named Keith Alberstadt, who was a Nashville comic. And he just kind of told me what he did. Living out of Nashville, he could hit all these clubs in surrounding areas and just go do guest spots and work your way into the club. I mean, there's so many cities especially within 8 hours of Nashville, but several within 4, some within 3, a couple within 2. And it's like, that's what I did. I moved to Nashville and I just started reaching out to clubs, doing guest spots, traveling, doing any club I could do for little to no money.
Yeah.
And then I just kept doing it. And then I started working my way into comedy festivals, and I got a couple of late night appearances from comedy festivals. And then I got JFL, and then
off to the races.
Yeah.
What was your day job in Nashville when you first moved there?
Well, I moved there with intentions of doing comedy, right? So I used to sell pesticides. I did that for like 8 years. And then I quit that job when I quit drinking. It all happened about the same time. And I didn't do it for 2 years, but it was a nationwide company, right? So when I moved to Nashville, they gave me a part-time job, but it was a seasonal position. And my whole plan was that by the time that job ended for the season, then I would not get a job again. That was my plan.
Nice. Full-time.
And then it worked. And that was 2014. I mean, I lived in an apartment. I lived in an attic apartment for $250 a month because I was making no money at comedy. I mean, maybe a weekend a month. I'd drive 8 hours to make $270, and a lot of comedies on weekends.
Oh God.
A lot of funny business runs.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
We had in the West Coast, I don't know if they had them in the East. We used to have tribble runs, which is basically you and another buddy would drive up to the bumfuck California, do a gig up there, drive up to Oregon, do a gig up there, drive up to Washington, maybe go over to like the way down and hit a Vegas thing. And it was like, you might make totally between like 8 gigs, like, $700-800, $100 a night to do 45 minutes. But
the Tribble Run is very famous, but I never did one. Everybody knows it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a rite of passage. And I think that's kind of the thing about with stand-up comedy too, is that like we all have our Batman origin stories, and it's like there was a twist. Like I was always the funny guy, and then one night I was high on coke, and somebody was like, "You're a comic, right?" And I was like, "You know what? I am." And then I went home and I found Chuckle. Was it Chuckle Monkey? Was that old website that literally had all the open mics?
Oh, yeah.
I went to Chuckle Monkey. I found Wiseacres. I went there and I signed up. I didn't get on the list, and I go up to the guy that's running it and I go, "Listen, man, I've never done stand-up comedy. And I signed up tonight, and I'm nervous. And if I don't do it tonight, I don't know if I'm never coming back." And he was like, "I'll put you up last." And I went up there and I did a blatant Dane Cook impersonation.
Okay.
I mean, down to every morsel of it was Cookie. And he was like, "Yeah, it was fine." And I was like, "All right." And then I did it one more time, and then I moved, and I was like, "I'm ready for LA." And then I moved to LA and just
don't waste any time. Just get in there.
Fuck that, dude. Also, but here's the cool thing about stand-up, and I think this is what's so great about our profession, is that I've been doing it almost 15 years, and I finally figured out what I want to do with it and how I want to be on stage, and that's what's beautiful about this, Yeah, it really is. It's like it takes time. Some people know it right away, and they're just dialed in, and some people you're just throwing shit up against the wall. And then finally and the cool thing is, I could say the same thing of probably what made you so successful so early, is you're such an individual that once you leaned into who you were and you talk about all that life experience, that's when people catch on, because they're like, "Yeah, there's no one like Dusty. And I love what he's saying because I can tell that's from a real place. And I know that life," or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people from all walks of life, if they've been poor at some point, they love it. I mean, I could see people that could tell might not even like me, but I would do this joke where I talk about good money, where I would say we didn't have a lot of money, but what we had was good money. You know, it's where your parents buy you something you don't like, and they're like, we paid good money for that, you know?
Yeah.
And I haven't done that joke in a long time. My delivery's way off,
That's great.
but that would grab people, and because they would be like, oh man, I know that. I mean, my mom said that to me all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's what I love. I mean, it you know, it's like when I was selling pesticides, that wasn't my side gig to get to comedy. I never thought I would be a full-time comic. I just was like, this is fun. I like this. I like drinking. I go work at a job I hate. And then at night I go out and do open mics with my buddies, and we get wasted after the open mic. Yeah. And it was great. I loved it.
The best.
But then I started to like get good. And then when I quit drinking, I was like, I don't know, my comedy just took off. I was like, oh, this is so much better now. My brain was in such a fog for so.
Also, you weren't inhaling pesticides.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that played a role too, I'm sure.
I love it. You know what's funny? I know we're a half hour in and we've only got another half hour of this, but there is a 45-year-old white man so upset that we're barely talking about this record right now. He is, trust me, because he's going to message me on Instagram when he finally figures out how to work Instagram. Let's dig into some of this record because I figure there's going to be more shit coming out about our both life experience from what the shit that we read here. So this is all based on this one guy, Harry Smith. So the little fandango we have about it. So this guy, Harry Smith, is an experimental filmmaker. He owns a personal collection of 78 RPM records. He wrote that he selected recordings from between 1927, when electronic recording made possible accurate music reproduction, and 1932, when the Great Depression halted folk music sales. Upon its release, the anthology did not gain recognition, as it had sold relatively poor and had no notable early coverage besides a minor 1958 mention in Sing Out, a quarterly folk music journal. This is like, there's a lot of parallels between this and The Mighty Wind. So I feel like this is a companion piece. So anybody listening to this, hashtag The Mighty Wind. The album is now, however, generally regarded as a landmark release in the history of the album, as well as an influential release during the 50s, 60s for the American folk music revival. So this is who Harry Smith is. Let's talk about this guy, because there's none of this record if it's not for this dude having these records. So Harry Smith, this is actually kind of weird. He's a West Coast filmmaker, a magician, which is a ritual occult magic magician, not a rabbit out of a hat magic. The spelling with a K dates back to the Renaissance. But he's bohemian and eccentric. As a teenager, he started collecting old blues, jazz, country, Cajun, and gospel records, and accumulated a large collection of recordings, and 78s being the only medium at the time. So this compilation is divided into 3 2-album volumes: ballads, social music, and songs. I don't know why that third one made me laugh.
Yeah,
just songs. Yeah. They're not saying shit. There's no love. They don't give a fuck about society or racism. They just tunes. As the title
is singing, they're just getting you there. They're just good.
Yeah, dude. They have. There's no weight or any kind of feeling behind it. They're literally just just song, man. As the title indicates,
you know, and
go ahead.
And I didn't buy the album, right? I just downloaded a playlist off Spotify. They say that this playlist is the closest to, so I don't see the album breakdown, but I did notice that as it got more into the album, I got more into it.
Yes.
The ballads are a bit, it's so much to do with the recording quality that just makes it hard to really get into. You can't really feel the soul of the singer because the recording
100%.
is not that great.
Yeah.
But as you get into it, and the instrumental stuff is unbelievable. I mean, There's a fiddle, there's a drum and flute song that I talked about. There's a good fiddle one. I mean, it's so great.
I couldn't agree with you more in the feeling that I got from listening to this. Like this was not a hard listen for me. For me, this was a very, very fun. Like I enjoyed that car ride home, and I went all the way through, which was about a 3 hour ride. I think this came out to be about under, because every song's like, barely 3 minutes. But this is what I love about music, is that regardless if it's like overproduced shit that's coming out now or the most raw recordings that we're ever getting, it still captures some sort of an emotion, and I find a connection to it. And I might not understand what is going on because this is a totally different time period, but musically, and what I hear through the instrumentation and through their lyrics, like it produces a feeling in me that is very calm. And this is not like I'm not getting depressed. Like, even if it's a sad song, I for some reason have a smile. It's because every one of these songs is like, down on the back. It's all jambalaya, dude.
And that's how bluegrass is so often. Bluegrass is like, they call it like the high lonesome blues. And it's a lot of sad stuff, but that banjo, Steve Martin had a joke about it, but it's tough to be sad on the banjo.
Yes, you're 100%, dude. Even when Mumford and Sons are singing about love and breakups, I'm just like, fucking get that washboard out. She broke my heart and I can die and I want to kill myself. God, I love that. All right.
Yeah, Billy Joe Shaver has a song that it says try and try again. And the first verse, he says, I went up on a mountain. I looked down on my life. I had squandered all my money, lost my son and wife. My heart was filled with sorrow and I almost took my life. But it's a great country tune. When you're listening, you're like, this is not sad. This is great. Because it's like, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. And he's like, look what I've been through.
Dude, even when I listen to, and I know she's not on here, but I believe like a lot of her music came from some of these early recordings and just the vibe, because everything we said, we've talked about, that 90s country, the 70s, the 60s, all basically comes from this. Like when I listen to Loretta Lynn, Coal Miner's Daughter, like Coal Miner's Daughter is a sad song about growing up dirt poor, but it's like, it's just such a beautiful song and so upbeat. It's like, well, we couldn't eat 4 days and my dad died from AIDS. And that is something that I'm doing right now. And I'm just like, God, this slaps.
I know, especially if you ever see photos of people going, there's a picture that I saw not long ago, and it was like all these people crammed into an elevator and they were about to go down into the mine for the day. And it's just like, that's hard life.
Hard, yeah.
I imagine when you come home, your dad is not very nice to you. Like when he gets home, he's not got time for niceness.
No, but then he puts this record on, and everybody's like, yeah, down on the bayou. Jer, what are some of the interesting things that we should talk about from this? Because there's so many tracks, there's so much to go through. I don't just want to we can't just start at the beginning with this. I feel like there's so much that I want to miss. Here, let's do this. The influence of this record. Let's talk about this real quick. So music critic John Bush wrote, the compilation could well be the most influential document of the 50s folk revival. Many of the recordings that appeared on it had languished in obscurity for 20 years, and it proved a revelation to a new group of folkies, from Pete Seeger to John Fahey to Bob Dylan and Joan Baez. The anthology made available music which previously had been largely the preserve of marginal social economic groups. Many people who first heard this music through the anthology came from very different cultural and economic backgrounds from its original creators and listeners. Many previously obscure songs became standards at hootenannies and folk clubs due to their inclusion on this anthology. Some of the musicians represented on the anthology saw their musical careers revived and made additional recordings and live appearances. Have you ever been to a hootenanny?
Well, if I have, they didn't call it that, but I've been to some clubs that I guess it could be considered a hootenanny. That's something that they would say in the South, though, like, oh, this is a hootenanny. This party's a hootenanny.
I love that. I want to go to a hootenanny.
Yeah.
I've been to a rave. I don't know if that's if it's the
Same
same
thing.
thing.
Oh,
You
a
know.
rave in Opelika, Alabama was a hootenanny, I guess,
Oh,
because
God
it was,
damn.
it was just a guy DJing with the same bass beat the whole time, just do.
Have you ever been to like a roadhouse bar? You ever been to like a double deuce?
There was a bar in outside of my hometown called the Cock and Bull,
Ooh,
and they had a sign out front that said you weren't allowed to wear your colors, like your gang colors. I guess a lot of biker gangs were coming there, and they would wear their colors in, and then it would cause fights. So you weren't allowed to wear that, and it was a pretty rough joint. I mean, I went there a few times, but mainly the sketchy stuff. I mean, you would go to like trailer parties,
Yeah.
and that's where it got real sketchy.
what's the sketchiest party you've ever been to?
Well, I went to a party one time. It was in Auburn, right outside of the university, but it's off in the country. And people that go to college at Auburn, a lot of them live in trailer parks. There's tons of trailer parks in Auburn. It's not weird at all to live in a trailer where I'm from. You're still poor, but it's not weird.
Yeah.
In Charleston, South Carolina, trailer parks are weird because nobody lives in them. So if you do see one, very sketchy. But I went to this party. And I was young, I was probably 16, 17, and I was like dancing, I was out there dancing with girls and I was drinking. And then we all go get in my car. I have a Ford Bronco 2, and it's a 2-door. I get in the back. My buddy's driving me. We got another buddy in the passenger, and then me and another buddy in the back. It's my car, but I'm letting him drive because I'm wasted. And none of those guys danced with any women the whole time. And not, they just are respectful people, I think. And all these guys came running down to the car, and they surrounded the car. And these were giant dudes. And my one buddy locked the driver's door. So
Nice.
They went around to the passenger door. They opened the door, and this big guy, his nickname was Baby D. We found out later.
Yeah.
And he just starts punching my buddy. And I'm sitting right behind him watching his head get punched in. And he's like, and finally they're like, and one guy goes, "You shouldn't have been dancing with my girl." And then we took off finally, and he was fine. But I heard him say, "You shouldn't be dancing with my girl," which meant he was trying to punch me.
Yeah. Your buddy took the brunt of it.
And I don't know if that's the sketchiest party I've been to, but that's the closest I came to getting crushed at a party.
I mean, that's got double deuce vibes to it for
Yes,
sure,
yes.
dude. Goddamn, Baby D. Hashtag Baby D, everybody, to see that you're listening to this.
I did go to a trailer to buy weed years later, and Baby D was there, but he didn't know
shit.
me. But it was very scary.
He didn't know you
God.
that night nor later.
yeah.
Just bring your friend with you.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. Yeah, if you see these trailer doors, a lot of trailer doors, they don't have peepholes. They just have kind of like a diamond-shaped window on it. And it's just big enough that you could put a wash rag over it. You just tack in 3 corners and it'll be a little flap. So you knock on the door and that flap lifts up and it's Baby D's face. And I'm like, oh no.
I love that. So there's so many songs for us to go through. So
many.
So me and Jeremiah, and we're going to say this to all the listeners. I guess, Jared, can we put some of the facts on the website so people can kind of get a gist? Because Adam really did a lot of thorough work for this. And I feel bad because there's just too much. There's too much for us to break down. But Jared and I came up with this idea with you where we thought it would be fun. And some of these are real and some of these are made up. We want you to pick American folk singer or 70s porn star.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I love this. This is
Okay,
great
yeah.
because I was looking at some of those names today. I was like,
All right. Here we go. Joseph Falcon.
I'm going 70s porn star.
Nope. It's fucking folk music, dude.
Joseph Falcon. Okay. All right. So, all right. Maybe I'm too much into the blues mindset of the names of singers. Okay. All right. I'm ready.
All right. We'll give you an easy one. Ron Jeremy.
Okay. Ron Jeremy, 70s porn star.
Yes. Who's
Ding, ding.
now in jail. Now he's in jail.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, oh my God. Like, you didn't know that, Jared? Why are you looking at me like that? You have no idea. Ron Jeremy, he like sexually assaulted women, and he's going to jail for like the rest of his life.
Wow.
Like, yeah, like he really fucked up. I mean, I guess, dude, here's the thing, man. It's like, I bet, in the 70s and the 80s and even probably the 90s, you probably get away with shit. And then the second, all the women, turned in 2017, they were just like, fuck that dude. And only thing I would meet him, he would come to the Comedy Store and he would fall asleep in the back, like, area. And he had like the most is that a word? Dandriad?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean.
Yeah, he had dandruff hair.
Dandruff. Yeah, that sounds right though.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
It's all over his shirt and stuff.
Flakies.
Even beard dandruff. I see dudes with like beard. It's like, I get it. You maybe not can help it, but try to do something about it.
Do something. Get some head and shoulders, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. All right, here we go. All right, this one might be easy. Blind Lemon Jefferson.
I'm going American folk singer.
Yes,
Okay.
very much. Blind.
See,
but also,
seems that's a real blues vibe to it.
100%. And also, and this is what we've talked about this in a previous podcast, which is like, that's what's so great about back in the day where you just called out the person's ailment and about the first name to be like, oh, this is cystic fibrosis, Jimmy Stevens. And right over there, that's one leg, Tony Rubble. And that's fibromyalgia, Sharon Meyers. And I love that, man. We need to bring that shit back.
I know we should bring it back.
All right, here we go.
Get people to clear up their dandruff if we
100 dandruffy Ron Jeremy. All right, this is a good one. This is a hard one. Columbus Frug.
I'm going American folk singer.
Jer?
Ding, ding.
Yeah, nice. All right, here we go.
Doing well.
Chubby Parker.
Chubby Parker. I know Chubby Parker is an American folk singer. I do know Chubby Parker. His recordings are tough. He seems very good, but his recordings are rough.
Yes. All right, here we go. Doc Boggs.
I don't know. Let's switch it up. Let's go 70s porn star for Doc Boggs.
Jer?
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, Doc Boggs, I could see America, but I was like, you know what? You can't have too many in a row.
No, hold on. Let me pull some other stuff up. I want to really, these are so much fun. I want to see if I can switch it up. 70 porn stars. Hold on. Cut this for time. Peter, the editing process. Names. All right, here we go. Men. I got to type in men because that makes it even better. There you go. Ooh. All right, here we go. Now I can really give you a dipsy-do, dunkaroo. All right. Hold on. Let me get back to the goodies. All right. This is so easy, though. Cannon Jug Stomper.
Well, I mean, Cannon Jug Stomper. I mean, that's got to be 70s porn star, but at the same time, a jug can be an instrument. You know what I mean? So was he known for stomping jugs?
Yes.
And that's what,
For sure, dude. It is Jeremiah. What is it?
Folk singer.
All right, here we go.
Wow.
I should have,
Okay.
I fucked
He's
up.
a folk singer?
He's a folk singer, yeah. I should have gone just down the list because now I have no idea if I've named some before. Like, did I do this? All right, you do one, and then I'll do another one.
All right, Prince Albert Hunt.
I think that I know this is a folk singer.
You're right.
Yes. I think I've seen Prince Albert. I mean, I did listen to the album, so some of these names I've seen.
Yeah.
I actually saw Prince Albert today, and I thought, that's an interesting name.
All right, I got one. Jamie Gillis.
Jamie Gillis. I feel like Jamie Gillis is a comedian. Oh, that's Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis.
Okay.
and he's part of the Jug Stompers too. He's
Jamie Gillis. Let's go 70s porn star.
Ding, ding, ding. Openly bisexual. And he graduated magna cum laude from Columbia University. I swear to God. Nearly 500 films. He died in 2010 from melanoma.
Oh.
So this episode's dedicated to Jamie Gillis, everybody. Hashtag Jamie Gillis.
A lot of tanning bed time, maybe, for Jamie Gillis.
Too much, dude. Too much. That was back in the day, too, before tanning beds were fucking, they were just shooting that fucking light at you. All right, Jared, what do you got?
I mean, this one might be the most obvious, but Dick Justice.
I mean, that's got to be 70s porn star.
It has to be, but it's not.
It's not.
Jeez.
Dick Justice.
Dick Justice should
great
be a
is
porn
that?
star name, though. If
That
it's
should
not,
be.
I hope someone's listening to this that says, you know what, we'll make that happen.
Dick.
More influence.
Definitely a man of honor. Dick Justice.
Dick Justice.
Courtroom porn. Courtroom porn.
It's very, very Law and Order. Peter Berlin.
Oh, Peter Berlin. That sounds like 70s porn star. I feel like I'm saying all 70s porn star now, but
You
Peter
are.
Berlin. Peter seems porn starish.
Ding, ding, ding. Gay sex icon.
Okay.
Also graduated from Columbia and died of melanoma. Melanoma must have just
Wow.
been. No, he didn't die of melanoma. I'm kidding.
That's good. It's good just now.
Jerry, you want to do one
Mess
more?
around, catch some
I got
melanoma.
one more. Uncle Bunt Stevens.
Uncle Butt Stevens, American folk singer.
Ding ding. Well done.
Yeah, if they're an uncle, they're a folk singer.
Yeah. Well, before the recent, it wouldn't be a 70s porn star. The recent porn movement of the family stuff. Uncle would have been
yes.
perfectly fine.
Oh,
Not in the 70s.
Then I'll do an easy one. Herschel Savage. there's no
I gotta
Jew.
go 70s porn star.
Yeah, you're dude. This guy, he Debbie Does Dallas. This guy ruled. That was like my dad. I remember when my dad died, and I found his box of porn, which you would think would be freaky, but it kind of was because it was all Asian eye contact blowjob scenes.
Okay.
Which was great because that's what I'm into. So like father, like son. But he did. My dad did have some of the classics. He had Debbie Does Dallas. He had a lot of the good stuff, dude. You know, and I remember those were some of the first porns that I was able to see. First porno you ever saw, Dusty. This is so off topic, but who gives a shit?
Well, I mean, I used to say, I saw a comic one time that he was talking about the first time he watched porn, and he was complaining about how slow the download speeds were. And I was like, that really blew my mind because the first time I watched porn was on a VHS tape, and my biggest complaint was having to rewind it back to the place where my dad left it at.
Yep.
And I couldn't tell you what the title of it was, but I can tell you that it was Tracy Lord's.
Nice.
And I remember he had a VHS tape of that, and my stepbrother found it. And weirdly, me and all the neighborhood kids put it in at a very young age and just sat around the living room and watched porn.
Dude, Jared, I remember one time we all skipped school, like this is in high school or something, and we're all at my house, and I had this porno. I don't know where I got it from, and I put it in. We're all watching it, and then we were drinking from my parents' liquor cabinet, and then everybody leaves, and then I'm like, well, I'm gonna masturbate now. Andrew, I'm not gonna say his full name, but our friend Andrew stole it, and I found it in his house, in his apartment, or room or something, like 6 months later. And I was just like, I just took it back. I didn't say anything. I never said anything. I just took it.
He had the same idea you had. He was like, I think I'll do that too. But there really was nothing like that back in the day. Like a bunch of your friends just sitting around the living room watching a porn that you found. I mean, it's so weird to think about, but it's like, it was just so fascinating. I'd never seen anything like that.
I remember when the Pam and Tommy DVD came out, we rented it. Me and Paul Bliven and Matt Meyers and a few of our friends, we rented it and we put it on. And when our friends were so homophobic, Jer, that like when Tommy Lee's dick was in the shot, they would go, and like put their hand up to block the dick. And I'm like, that's the part you got to see to see the sex. You got to see the dick, dude. Now I have relationships with certain of the male porn stars' penises. Like, there's a couple guys where I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Like, I like the way his dick looks. I do. There's one guy. What's his name? Bruce. I always going to say Bruce Hornsby, but it's not that. It's Bruce. So we'll find it later. We have
Like
10
you said,
minutes.
you have relationships.
Well, don't you like with porn stars? Like,
One
don't
way.
you like?
One way.
Yeah, you find a girl that you dig, and you're like, oh my god, and you utilize her porn, and then you spend some time with her. You know, like you might jerk off like 5-6 times, and then you move on. You break up.
the 45-year-old man that was complaining about us not covering the album before, where do you think he's at now?
I don't know. Nor do I. Dude, listen. Dude, this is one of those episodes where it's what are we supposed to do? There's 300 songs on this.
I wish I could remember the name. I know I'm talking about the flute.
Find the flute song.
I had a guy in the Uber today, and I had him listen to this on the way. I had an hour drive, and we listened to a lot of it.
That's amazing. He was like, "Oh yeah, anything you want to listen to?" And you're like, "How about 300 songs of folk music?"
Hey,
that is what I said.
You got anything from like after the Great Depression? You have like, I'm really vibing with that time. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to know I want to feel the stock market crash in the music.
I love some of these song names, Mississippi Boll Weevil Blues.
Yes.
I mean, they were really dealing with stuff.
Dude, Dusty, some of these songs are like Adam, our writer for this, God bless his soul. Like, he really did a good job. Like, he talks about like the opening song from ballads like Henry Lee by Dick Justice and House Carpenter, which is like, it's just, there's these so many interesting stories that I can't even read for the time. But there's like a song, which I love. It was called King Kong Kitschy Kitschy Key Me Oh.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
But Chubby
So
Parker,
great.
That's about a song about a frog courting a mouse. That's like the song. Wow. The mouse is willing to marry the frog, but he has to ask permission of Uncle Rat. And then there's this whole story. And fucking, where's the one about? There's Charles, I'm going to fuck that name up, Guiteau, recorded by... Go ahead.
The frog and rat song, I mean, I always like to try to think about like what's going on, right? It's like nowadays, if I have to wait for anything for more than 30 seconds, I pull out my phone and start looking at it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. So you got to imagine, this guy's sitting on his back porch, got nothing going on, and there's probably a frog out there and a rat that he keeps seeing. And then he just comes up with this idea that they got married to each other one day. And now this is a song. Who knows if it was even were songs even hits back then? Could you have a hit?
Yeah, for sure. You for sure had hits back then, because I mean, you wouldn't. Actually, you know what? I'm speaking out of my ass. I have no fucking idea. I assume because radio existed back then, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
It was like big band stuff. I mean, it was the folk. I don't think made it.
No, folk made its film. And
national.
dude, this is where the fan, that one music dude that listens to this podcast can get mad at us, because my assumption is that folk music really was taken to the next level, like with Dylan and those guys, the Arlo Guthries.
Totally.
Oh, yes.
A great movie for everybody to see. It's not about the music that's on here, but Inside Llewyn Davis, the Coen Brothers movie about this folk singer in New York, where I live, like in the Village, going trying to make $1, and he's like, this is right before Dylan comes out, and there's just like they're just signing up all these folk singers. It's a great movie, not this music, but like we said, everything without this music, we don't have all the country you grew up listening to. I'd even say there's some like forms of rock and roll coming from this. I mean, this is blues. It's blues, and blues is rock and roll without a doubt. Very influential record.
Arlo Guthrie, really great. I never had listened to him, and I had some people come up to me after a show and tell me that I sounded like Arlo Guthrie the way I did comedy sounded like Arlo Guthrie.
Really?
So I listened to the song Alice's Restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is really great. I mean, it's like, I don't know, about 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly what it's about, but it's kind of like he was going to join the army and then it didn't work out or something like that. And I joined the army at 19 and then got arrested and didn't get, my court date came after my ship off date. So I never went. And so I always related to that. I was just trying to escape my hometown and join the army.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even get out that way.
Wow.
Like the cops were like, no, you're staying. We're going to go ahead and take your license so you can't even drive around
Dude, fucking blessing in disguise, bro. You might have been
Yes, it was.
you might have been a goddamn a sergeant at fucking Alice Island. No, not Alice Island. Where's you know what I'm talking about? The
Well,
place where they take everybody.
I was gonna get shipped off to boot camp in August of 2001. So I would have been in boot camp when September 11th happened.
Yep.
And
Wow.
I mean, I was 19 and I had this weird kind of mindset that America is never going to be involved in a war because we're, you know, like we're the best or whatever. Like I was like, who's going to mess with America? And then like we were in a war, like we've been in war since then, basically.
Yeah, basically.
I would have been, who knows? I mean, I think about it sometimes. I go, hey, could have been great. Who knows what I would have did, right? But probably not.
Dude, listen, you've probably played some fucking hell goddamn weekends on the road at like Uncle Chunky's Funny Shack that are just as bad as Afghanistan in 2003, bro. I mean,
yeah, and interestingly enough, some of the military towns are the worst towns. Worst. Fayetteville, our Fayetteville, North Carolina is a military town, and the gig was rough. I mean, I don't know if it was a reflection of the whole town. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but the gig was rough.
Dude, it's what we do. You know, when there's like a lot of the black comics used to be like, yo, I'm on that grind. And I'll be like, nah, it's not a grind. Dude, it's a fucking grind.
It is a grind.
Airports, cars, getting to the gigs, dealing with club owners, you know, writing new material, bombing with that new material, even doing good material, bombing with the good material, being in the best mood, ready to tackle the world. You're like, I'm about to put on the best show ever. Drunk, you know, bachelorette party in the audience ruins the whole hour. I mean, it's what we do. I say it on stage when I get hecklers. I go, you understand, this is the hardest job in the fucking world. Now, of course, coal miners, people getting black lung. Yeah. But what we do, having to go up there on stage where they don't know who we are. Most of the time, you are at least at a place where it's like you've had something that really popped with the Netflix half hour where they can be like, all right, we've seen this guy and they're coming to see you. But you know what it was like before that.
Absolutely.
You're going to those cities and you're the unknown headliner and they're like, all right, make me laugh. I'm here to laugh. Make me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild. I mean, I had just done the Tonight Show and I was already booked at this gig in Fayetteville, and it's like called like the Dog House or something like that. And you go, and the first show is two shows. The first show was pretty decent, had a pretty good turnout. But the guy that was opening for me, he was out front and he was talking to a lady, and this lady was like smoking, and she goes, "This guy any good?" And he was like, "He just did the Tonight Show." And she throws a cigarette at her. She goes, "That don't mean shit." And then the second show rolls around and no new people show up. It's just people from the first show that decided to stick around and see the next one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the same show here. I'm not, I may have a joke or two different, but this is the same show.
Dude. Here's the deal. This is what I want to do because I appreciate you coming on to talk about this album. We're going to have you back when it's like one of the records that you're like, this is my fucking, you know what I mean? Like this is something that we know every little morsel of and we've got stories about. But I had so much fun doing this with you. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. I did want to mention if you're the song here called "A Lazy Farmer Boy."
Yeah.
And I listened to those lyrics, and there is a song, a cover by Alison Krauss and Union Station called "The Boy Who Wouldn't Hoe Corn," and their version is amazing. Instrumentally, it's so good. So
I love Alison Krauss.
Yeah.
No, I will. Oh, dude, I listen. And this is what I love about this music is this is a record that will make its way still into my life. I'm not saying that my relationship with this record ends right here. I am going to listen to this again. I'm going to put that playlist on Spotify on, and it's just really nice background music. And I recommend to all the listeners of the 500, all the Fleece Army, dude, put this record on and let it ride. Like it's not going to make your day. It's not going to make your day worse. It's going to make your day better. It's a mood, it's a vibe, and it's a time in our life that you'll realize influenced everything else moving forward. Like all the music we listen to now is all basically because of this record. And I mean, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just love to think about time periods, right? Because we talked about going to the Golden Corral buffet and eating all the fried chicken we want, and the guys cutting off meat. But my dad, his dad was born in 1900, so my dad was raised by old parents, and they were pretty poor growing up. And my dad, for a long time, would eat when he would eat like a chicken leg. And my dad has made some money at this point, but when he would eat a chicken leg, he would eat the ends off of it, and then he would eat the bone marrow out of the chicken to where it was just a hollow little chicken bone. And he just said when he was growing up, it's like you got a piece of chicken and that was it. You didn't just nibble on it and grab another one. He was like, that was your piece, and you ate as much of it as you could possibly eat. So I think about that when I think about these people playing these songs, because it's easy to go, oh, this sucks. This is not what I want to listen to.
Yeah.
But it's like, you really think about, here's some guy who he may have just somehow stumbled upon this guitar, and it is just, he probably don't know any chords. He's just strumming away. And I don't know. I like to think about it when I listen to this music.
I love that. I love that, Dusty. I think that when I talk about the elevator pitch, because we're going to ask you the same questions we ask everybody, I think that was such a perfect way to sum up this record. It's like, it's a different, this album is those people's pieces of chicken.
Yes.
But some of these people went on and actually probably had careers. Some of these people recorded this song. This is the biggest day of their life. They got this one little piece of their talent on a fucking 78, and that's it. And it somehow ended up because of this one dude, fucking, what's his name? Henry Lee, not Henry Lee, that's the song title. The guy, Harry Smith, big ups to Harry Smith. Ultimately, if it's not Harry, we're not here.
Yeah, what you said reminds me of that movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, right?
Yes.
Because in that movie, they go into a studio, they record a song, and they leave and they take their $50 or whatever, and they never think about that song again. And then meanwhile, this song is being printed and churned out. And had they never did the concert they did, they might not know that they're actually famous. So how many people recorded a song and it went out to people and they never had any idea what was going on with it?
100%. Oh, wow, dude. Yeah, it's a good point. Also, good reminding me of that movie, because that movie fucking rules.
It really does.
It really does. All right, I'm going to ask you these questions, get you out of here. And if we don't know the titles, we'll do the best we can. But what was your favorite song on this record? You can just say flute and banjo or whatever.
Well, I really would like to find that flute song, but I was like that. I feel like that's where the album started to turn, where I was like, oh, okay, I like this.
Yeah, these are all so many tracks.
And then it started to, then it really started to turn up, and
the social music, right? Yeah, it's a little bit more lively.
I mean, Judgment is a pretty, Judgment is one of those songs where if you were sitting in church and they started doing this song, you'd be like, oh man, this is my church, because that's a real jam.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like He Got Better Things for You is also all a cappella.
I mean,
maybe not, but
I really liked the one about the Titanic.
John the Revelator.
I loved when that great ship went down. I really liked that. I loved Dry Bones. The ones I picked out, I Wish I Was a Mole in the Ground, Poor Boy Blues, See That My Grave Is Kept Clean. These are all the ones that I just wrote down as I was like, wow, these are the ones that are sticking with me. All right, my question to you now, and there's so many of them. Were there any songs that you skipped over, or is there anything you could say was your least favorite? There's too many songs, and if you don't have an answer, I'm not going to be upset.
Well, at the very beginning, about the first 3 or 4 songs all sounded pretty much the same to me. So I would all right, I like that, and then I go to the next, and it just, even they don't all sound exactly the same, but it is that same kind of not really singing. They're just kind of doing a thing.
Yes, 100%. All right. Can you fuck to this record?
I think so. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but I think so. I mean, I mean, it depends on the girl. I mean, in the past, I put on some music that girls were like, "What's this? this is not it."
Yeah, I think look, back in the day, I bet people have fucked to this music. Maybe not my choice. I'll still go with Deftones and Portishead. I feel like that's a little bit easier, but you can fuck to it. Too many songs to say pick one to fuck to. All right, last question. Where'd you guys go? Are you still here? Well, there you are.
I'm here. Yeah,
no. You disappeared for a split second. All right, and the final question, and I feel like you might have already said it, but we're going to do it again anyway. What would be your elevator pitch to get somebody to listen to this album?
Well, I would tell them to, transport themselves in time. If you want to know what life was like, before we had all the convenience that we have now, you can listen to these people's problems because that's what this album is to me. It's people's problem. And that's why I think you find a lot of religious tracks on here too, because people are like, get me out of here. This is not fun. We're tired. We're hot, especially if you're in the South. I mean, I don't know exactly where you guys grew up, but it's like, I can't imagine living in the South without the invention of air conditioning. I mean, it's like my grandmother growing up. I mean, she lived during the Depression and she did not have central heat and air. You would go to her house. This is in Alabama. And we would just sit there with an oscillating fan that would just go around and give you a brief moment of relief before it goes on to the next people. And I just think it's interesting to hear this time period and to and to just, I don't know. I think I might have given my elevator pitch away already, but
you killed it though. Don't worry.
I mean, I just think that it's important to think about, like, because I like country music, right? Because that's what I grew up. And I understand why someone would like rap because it's what you relate to, right?
For sure. Yeah.
If you grow up in a city. That's why I feel like city people always like punk and stuff like that, because it's like, that's kind of what you can relate to. And I think that's what this music is. I mean, it's like, if you want to feel what it was like in the 30s, give these songs a listen, where people can't even really play the instrument that well, but they're like, I got something to say.
100%. Please promote away anything you want to promote.
Well, my website has all my dates on it, dustyslade.com. I mean, I'm all over the place. I don't necessarily tour. I just go out every weekend and I'm at a different place every weekend. And I do a podcast with Nate Bargatze now called the Nateland Podcast that we put out every week. I have my own podcast called the We're Having a Good Time Podcast. Any of that's fun. If you've liked any of the rambling that I do, that's what my podcast is. Nate will keep us from rambling too much, but when I'm free to ramble, I just go on and on.
I love it. I love that I love that you and Nate work together, man. I really do, because I love Nate. I think both of you guys are just so talented. It's just so funny. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, dude.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.